Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we take a look at life, grief, and something I call the sound of silence with Shayler, who's been on our show a couple of years ago, and he's been on a journey of recovery and healing. Now, he's been willing to share his story and accepts the challenge to reveal his personal experiences in the hope of helping people struggling in silence. Let's meet Shayler and hear his story and learn a little about this sort of path and journey through substance use disorder, recovery, and sort of what happens even in the best of times when your mind starts to work on the issues you're dealing with. Shayler, welcome back to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Peter, it's good to see you again. So like you said, I have been on a journey with recovery, my mental health, and talking about grief, loss, and all those things that you mentioned. It's been difficult at times, and there's been some unexpected challenges that have come up. And I think that's not only part of recovery, but part of life in general. So today I'm in a really good spot. I'm working as a peer support specialist and have been for the last 2 years, which is essentially just being open and willing to share your story with others and kind of provide somewhat of a roadmap on how you've done in recovery with your own struggles.
I in talking to you and looking at your Facebook page and hearing about the things you're doing, one thing I notice in dealing with a large community of people in recovery is that you're really trying to drill down in terms of the core sort of human values. I mean, we've got these ideas I talked about as the sound of silence. We've got Simon and Garfunkel doing it. We got the speed of the sound of silence by John Prine. I mean, this is a theme. And I noticed it in talking to you last time that you're having this inner dialogue that almost everybody has in times of grief or recovery, but you're willing to share it and you're willing to talk about how it's connected. And that's a valuable insight because even I was just impressed by the fact that you're tapping into that sort of energy. When did that begin for you? Has it always been there?
Uh, yeah, I think really that started at a really early age. There was some things that I went through in childhood that kind of sent me into a depression. And like I think back on those times, and that's really when I felt the loneliness. I think there was a disconnect between me and some of my friends growing up because at a young age I had really gone through quite a bit, and I was always trying to connect with other people as a kid, like trying to have that common ground of like, hey, I'm hurting, like I've been through these things, and I just never was really able to find that. And eventually, by the time high school rolled around, I was really struggling with social anxiety and depression. And being from Parkersburg, I was 15 when the tornado hit, 16 when Coach Thomas was shot and killed. And like all these things just kind of snowballed. And it was really hard to talk to anybody about a lot of the things that I was dealing with internally. And it was really a really big conflict for me. Um, and there was a couple people that I met throughout my life that I was able to connect with early on, but kind of lost that for a long time. And I would say from 15 to 20 was probably the point in time when I felt the most alone. And even after all that, because I know you do want to cover kind of talking about grief, and that's something that's been probably the thing that I've dealt with the most in life is just losing people that I care about. And, that loss does really put a hole in a person.
Yeah, and you really talk about that. I mean, so many people are going through that stuff and it's silent. They can't talk to other people about it. They don't have therapy or anything like that. They don't sort of look at themselves and say, I have a mental health challenge here. How do I deal with it? And you've been like almost brazen in your ability to look in the mirror and expose yourself. But that can't be without its own set of mental challenges. I mean, what kind of things accompany that effort? Sometimes fears or hopes.
Yeah. we got a train coming by. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but we'll ignore that. Um, yeah, it has been challenging given what happened in 2009 with Coach Thomas. And when I ran into my mental health struggles, I had done something that, in the eyes of the community, kind of put a target on my back. And the stigma is a very real thing, not just within our country, but within our own small communities as well. And I think I, at one point in time, I felt like it was my responsibility to maybe try and take on that stigma and start sharing about my experiences. And I didn't know what to expect out of what would happen from that, but I think it's been good and beneficial, and hopefully I'm making some sort of positive impact by sharing my journey.
Well, I think that concept of reconnecting with people about your journey can be not just scary for yourself, but scary for them. We're going to take a short break and come back and touch on that a little bit. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out! Trojan horse. That's why at MediaCom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, rude kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Shayler about the often unspoken challenges of healing in silence, a place that's probably better defined as loneliness and anything but silent, where the volume of thoughts that accompany recovery and healing can sometimes be pretty confusing. How do you feel about all that going on in your head, so to speak, and how you resolve that with rebuilding your life?
Yeah. Um, like I said, my mental health struggles really became communal knowledge back in 2013 during my first episode with bipolar mania. And I think like I was gone for about a year dealing with the aftermath of that. There was some legal troubles that came up along with dealing with the mental health side of it too. And when I got back home, it was almost like nothing changed. The way people treated me was a little bit different, and that was uncomfortable because it was evident to me that people saw me differently than how they previously saw me before. And that was really a struggle. And even among friends that I've known since, I mean, some of them elementary school, even they kind of had a different kind of, I don't know, just the way they kind of treated me was different. And like I talked about, like at one point in time, I felt like I needed to share my side of the story because it was evident that there was rumors running around town that weren't true, and that was something that bothered me. And it's interesting because I started sharing my story openly on Facebook back in 2019, around the same time that I got sober this time, because that was definitely a journey to get sober. You know, there was definitely stints in there where I would do well and other stints where I wouldn't do so well. But what's really cool about where I'm at now is there's people out in the community that I hardly even know, and they know that I've been sharing my story very openly, and they'll just tell me about whatever they're going through, like I'm somebody that's been their friend for the last 10, 15 years. And that was something that I didn't really expect to happen, but I am grateful that people feel like I am somebody that they can trust and talk to and share their struggles with.
You know, as a mentor, you've been leading, or a peer support specialist, you've been leading people by example. And I know one of the things you've talked about is taking this whole idea of social media to another level to be more accessible to people. And that's fascinating to me, because that's like the good side of social media, where there's a real humane and honest connection as compared to all the noise and TikToks and entertainment value stuff. And you're actually sort of symbolic of a trend amongst a lot of young people that are saying, listen, we can use social media for good things. How does that segue into what you've been going through the last couple of years? Because I know first it was a very personal thing to reconnect with people face to face. Now you're looking at it on a whole different level.
Yeah, so it's definitely different. Like I said, I started sharing on social media in 2019. And when you're just kind of speaking into a camera and putting it out there on the internet, like you don't really know how people are receiving it. And for the last 2 years, like actually being able to work with people and share my story with them more personally, one-on-one, it's been a different experience, because I get a sense now of like maybe the things that I've gone through can help somebody overcome their own struggles and what they're currently going through. And yeah, it's been really cool. And yeah, social media can be a really good thing to bring people together and kind of bridge that gap of that loneliness. And like that's part of why I want to do what I'm doing, to just let people know, like, I know it's scary to talk about the things that go on in your head, but it's okay, and it should be okay to talk about these things. I mean, it should be accepted and normalized.
Yeah, you know, an interesting thing we're learning about social media is that people often refer to things like loneliness or depression as a lack of things to do. But what they're really learning is that getting all that stuff to do that they get, it doesn't help at all. It's not the things to do, it's the using it as a tool to connect with people and really share important values. Are you seeing that as a result of your work?
100%. 100%. I mean, we're hardwired as human beings for connection. I mean, we really do need each other. And what I've noticed with social media is it's just kind of a fake form of that connection. Like it really is. And you get on the real world and you find common ground with people and you build those relationships, and your life really does begin to improve. I mean, I really do believe that the quality of our lives is dependent on the quality of our relationships. And again, part of what I wanted to do initially with my Facebook page was take it beyond just social media and get people together and start talking about these things openly in a group setting.
I think that's really admirable. And it's interesting to see the evolution of your concepts over time since the 2 years you've been here. I'd like to talk a little bit about that and that dialogue of grief we talked about. We're going to take a short break and we're going to come back and continue our conversation with Shayler. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Dad, I'm not glitching.
I told you with our new Extreme Internet, it will be smooth streaming.
That's unbelievable.
Well, you better believe it, Missy.
I already finished streaming the whole second season of my show.
So start the third.
What the fast? That's really not frustrating.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should.
I'm gonna get some ice cream. Do you want some? With
With the drama-free reliability of Extreme Internet, you'll have to create your own. Get super fast internet with whole home Wi-Fi for as low as $24.99 a month for a year.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove.
You told me not to do drugs.
You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe.
Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about the process of orienting on life after trauma, specifically related to substance use disorder, but almost relentlessly accompanied by the internal dialogue of grief, sadness, and loneliness. Let's hear what Shayler has to say about that.
Yeah. So prior to 2019, I ended up quitting drinking in November of 2019. And the longest stint I had before that was 8 months. And in August of 2018, one of my closest friends and a neighbor of mine ended up taking his own life. And during that 8-month period of sobriety, I was really trying to figure myself out and try to find a sense of authenticity and confidence again. And I was really isolating from everybody. I mean, I was living with my parents at the time, but I wasn't talking to anybody. I was trying to work things out almost completely on my own. And during that time, when my friend took his own life, I was really stricken with guilt because I believed that I could have done something to prevent it. And the day that it happened, I started drinking again. And for the next 14 months, really fell deeply into that guilt that I had talked about. And I was just drinking and dwelling on that and ruminating on something that had already happened, something that I really did have no control over. And that too, like that happening played a big part in what I'm trying to do today. Because I felt like I really dropped the ball on my friend, and I really don't want to do that again.
You know, that's really taken on a lot of responsibility, though. I mean, it's almost a burden so heavy to bear. How do you work through that and feel like good about yourself?
It's difficult. It's really difficult. And I know, like, I feel like I do have standards that are just way too high for anybody to be able to meet. Yeah, it's a lot, and it does feel like a huge responsibility, but it's something that I can't seem to shake. Like
And you say that, you know, you say you have standards, but and that's a nice way of maybe putting it to put even more weight on you. But in a way, are you not painting yourself a little bit into a corner?
I do think
tougher?
so. I do think so, 100%. Yeah, I do, but it wasn't just that one experience though with that friend in particular. There was other things too that I felt like I could have done differently, and we can't change the past, but we can learn from it. And like I know I'm not going to be able to save everybody, and that's something that the people around me tell me constantly. You can't help everybody. Ideally, I wish that we could, but I do just want to be able to help whoever is within my realm of influence, I guess is a way you could put it.
One of the changes I've seen in you is that you went from really a lot of guilt and shame and, you know, working through the issues related to that. And at least now you're going out there with a little bit more optimism that the world runs with or without Shayler, and Shayler's now here to help it a little bit, not carry the whole burden.
Yeah.
Is that also sort of emblematic of why you're looking at social media? Because that sort of establishes a level playing field with a larger number of people and makes you accessible, even though maybe not as deeply to begin with, at least gets you out there.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. So we are starting this podcast, me and a friend, and it's something that we started talking about a few years ago, but neither one of us was really in a position to be able to do it. And she has her own struggles with trauma and all these different things too. And yeah, that's definitely part of it, to try to get that message out there and try to connect in that way. So that's the hope. That's really the hope with it.
And now how is grief different for you today? Because I mean, it's often been said from parents that have lost children and friends, and they said you don't ever get over grief. You just learn to live with it. It's not something you cure.
Mhm.
What's been your experience?
Yeah, so in August of 2021, uh my dad passed away, and it was cancer. And I feel like I handled it a lot better than I probably would have if it would have happened 2, 3, 4 years earlier. But it's true. I mean, it's something that is constant. It's constant pain. Like I've lost so many people in my life, and the feeling is always the same. The grief is always the same. Like that doesn't change. And it is hard, but the one thing that I know is as hard as it is, there's multiple ways that a person could make it a lot worse. And like I had mentioned, my friend that ended up taking his own life, the way that I dealt with it just made everything worse. I mean, grief hurts bad enough, but when you throw alcohol and substances on top of it, you're just throwing gasoline on a very big fire.
Hmm. Well, we're going to take a short break, and afterward, Shayler's going to share some final comments, insights, and inspiration. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Oh boy.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we explored life, grief, and the powerful impact of silence with Shayler. He's been on a journey of recovery and healing. Let's see what insights and inspiration Shayler has to share with us.
Yeah, so the last 2 years have really been eye-opening. Over the last 11 years, I've spent a lot of time in and out of mental health facilities and really getting an idea of people. And I'm genuinely interested in people, and I think because of that, people are very open about some of the things that they struggle with. And every situation's different, every person's different. And even like people that have the same mental illness, like their struggle is very different because their inner dialogue is just so different. Their support systems are different. Their situational stuff is different. The way they handle it, like it's all different. So each person has their own way of trying to deal with things. And that's one of my problems with social media. Like it takes such a small snapshot of who a person is, and people will construct a whole belief about that person based on some minor thing. And I think we do that in real life too. people are so much more complicated and unique and really, I don't know, special in so many different ways. If you just take the time to really peel back that onion and get to know a person and ask those questions and try to figure out why they are the way they are. And just more than anything, like you talk about the sound of silence, right? And for me, a big part of what I do is just sitting with somebody and letting them know, like, I'm here and being consistent about that. And no matter what they're dealing with, just being there and listening and not trying to offer advice or share any kind of experience that I've been through that might relate to it, but just listen and hear them out. And I think that's the one thing that I hear the most is like, just thank you for listening.
It seems as if the journey of recovery and healing and dealing with grief really falls on the shoulders of each individual, but being surrounded by people that care makes a big difference. You know, when you think, I've had many people on the show that have just started recovery, and they said the most toxic thing is knowing that all the people that they were users with never got deep with anything with them. It was very superficial and very escapist. And so whenever something got serious or somebody got in trouble, it's as if you were disconnected from your support system because it really wasn't a support system. Everybody would vacate if the stuff hit the fan. Is that something that's common amongst the people you work with in recovery? And there is a lot of the reorientation to build a healthy environment for themselves.
Yes. And I can just speak from personal experience. The support system that I have individually now is stronger than anything I've had before. And I know so many people that I work with don't have that. And I'm fortunate that I work with such an amazing team of peer support specialists that can offer that for those people. And I do see that a lot. I see that a lot when somebody is dealing with these problems and they have something major come up and then everybody vanishes. And that was definitely something that was true for my experience and is true for so many people. So I honestly am a firm believer that your support system is the most important thing when it comes to dealing with life.
Well, you know, I really appreciate you putting things out there like that and being part of a support system for people that are following in the footsteps of a journey that you've been on for a few years now. And congratulations on doing that very, very well. And thank you all for watching today. Check out our website, ahealthyiowa.org, and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.